good morning and good evening to everyone who's hearing us or listening or watching us today. Um, so today we have a very special guest. We have Price Industries and Michael Illardi. They have been a Visual Kei customer for a while now, and we've seen a lot of growth there. So we just wanted to have that story as part of our episode. So Michael, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Happy to be here and talk to y'all.
Great. So before we start, can you give us a little bit of background on Price Industries and yourself so we can, get to know you better and know what we're talking about today?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So my name is Michael Illardi. I'm the maintenance supervisor over here at our newest manufacturing facility in Georgia, our Crestridge Drive location. I've served as a maintenance supervisor. I also serve kind of as an asset manager, the EAM manager for the U.S. plants as well. So I help out all the other plants with the EAM, which we'll dive into a little bit. So Price Industries, we're HVAC manufacturing, a lot of sheet metal. We make a lot of plenums, diffusers, a lot of what you see in the ceiling and right above the ceiling. We don't really do a lot, really any air distribution, but a lot of terminal units, heating and cooling for all different types of applications, hospitals, businesses, all commercial.
So you're the magic that happens behind the vents that we see on the roof.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, this is a conversation on asset management, and you guys started this journey a while ago. How did it start? Where did you get, the first reasoning behind we need an asset management tool?
Right. So I came on about 4.5 years ago as an intern. We had just unrolled our EAM. And before the EAM, we had another application that managed our work orders and our preventive maintenance work, but we didn't have anything that kept a good historian or record and data. What we wanted to do is start collecting how much time we're spending on work, how much time we're spending on PMs, how can we improve our PMs based on that data that we get, start calculating better downtime and automating reports that we can send out to supervisors and different production personnel so that we can really optimize our the downtime that we do have and prevent unnecessary downtime in the future.
So how did you get started? Did you go full blast and get to all these metrics and optimizations, or
absolutely not? We started off by unloading what we had in our old system into our new system, and then immediately realizing that it wasn't enough. So we had to start building it out, gathering a lot of information about our equipment that we didn't have, so that we could organize information adequately. So equipment classes, all these different types of work orders, because it's before a work order is a work order. We need help, but there's different types of work orders that we can organize based on what the needs are, the type of equipment, and priorities, et cetera. So there's a lot of different metrics that we had to build out, and we had to gather one by one at a time. We didn't, and we're not where we want to be at the end yet. Probably never will be. That's the point.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a continued journey, but we've done a lot in the past several years.
Yeah. You mentioned, the optimization of different parameters, having, tracking downtime and all that. How did you get to the different metrics, that, at the first time that you went around that implementation, you probably had a list of priorities there in terms of, I want to be able to track this first.
Right.
So how did you get about that? What was, kind of the first priority there?
Right. Well, the first thing we wanted to do is get everybody on the same page, right? Buy in on the new system. So now we had technicians that could use a handheld device, and they could see a work order and they could go to an equipment. So what we wanted to do is make sure that they knew how to use the software and that they could put in the information that we needed. So there's a lot of training and buy-in and just showing what the end result could look like to really motivate people to say, hey, I need to put this information in. And it's fun to do because it's on this tablet and it builds a routine. And that way that I'm doing the same thing every time and we're getting good information that we can calculate. So we really started just by working on PMs and work orders with our technicians, making sure that they knew what to look at and what information to put in on our small scale, and then working with production employees as well on how to put in the work orders and what information they need to put in. And then the next level on that would have been making sure our PM schedules were set up and intact and are being kept up with. So it's basically just a very small level, making sure that we're getting accurate and good information from the work that we're doing.
All right. So let's say the first step was, baby steps, getting everyone on board, getting everyone familiarized with the tool. At what point did you consider, we're ready to go to the next level and start measuring information?
Right. So if you don't have good data, then you can't get a good report, and you're not going to have any good information to make decisions off of, right? So the whole time we were taught how to run some basic reports on how much labor is being spent on certain type of work, and even more important than that, what our compliance was, and how are we actually tracking our work. Our work orders being put in as they should. So we learned how to run reports, and we started running reports on what the current work is and what work's been completed. And based on that, we could kind of gauge like, okay, we're actually getting some good data now. We got X amount of work orders a day when we used to have this much. And this is way more accurate. We're probably doing 50 work orders a day compared to 10. That's much more accurate. So once we could tell we were starting to get more accurate information, then we could start pulling in some more breakdown information. What are our highest criticality equipment, and what are our highest breakdowns? We can start getting into the weeds a little more about that too. Getting better metrics on PM compliance. What's our PM versus breakdown work ratio? What's our wrench time in comparison?
Yeah. Would you say there was a lot of? Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying you have to have good data before you can actually use the data. So that's what we were working on. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So would you say there was a lot of trial and error on this process?
Oh, definitely a lot of trial and error. Yeah. Tweaking little things on the screen, trying one method and being like, okay, that doesn't give us the information we need. And then working with our consultants at the time as Visual K, trying to figure out what's the best method of getting this information that we need. And then so we try something else maybe if we needed to. Maybe run a different report, get some more data, present it to the team in another way to try to say, hey, look at this. We can pull this data and we can tell this, and that helps you all in this method. So just trying different ways to do to get the same result.
Right. So when you started, I seem to recall that you had a report that was sent like every certain amount of hours. Was that overwhelming? Was that something that the team, didn't respond well to that? The question that I'm getting to is, is there a point where too much information is a problem as well?
Yeah, it definitely could be. But there's also a period in time where I believe that might have been necessary. When we have no data, nobody knows. Nobody has a clear picture of where we're at. So production wants to know what their asset health is. They want to know how reliable their equipment is. They want to know what's down so they know where to put what. And so definitely at the beginning, we had a report going out every hour on what the work orders were, what's the breakdowns, and what's the update on the statuses. And that was an email Excel that was going out to all the production like every hour. And right now, we really don't need that anymore. We have email notifications that go through, and there's a work order in a department. It just sends an email saying this breakdown entered by this person, and this is the reason in your department. So it's department specific. No big spreadsheets really like that anymore are needed. And we also have work order display screens that update on auto refresh that anyone can look at, and they can see an auto refresh of that. So we don't have to send out tons of data to people every hour. It's easy to get to, and they only see what they need now.
So you would say it was a necessary step to get that information.
Yeah.
It was something that, even if it was too much, everyone had to be informed at all times. So
but there was buy-in.
You figured it out. What's that?
It didn't like it because they're getting a lot more emails, but it was necessary because they realized,
Right.
hey, I actually know what's happening in the plant now. I know what's down.
Right.
So definitely some growing pains, but because we had good buy-in from production, they were necessary. They were able to buy in on it. And
Awesome.
because they were able to buy in on it, we were able to improve on it.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, that improvement. How throughout the years that you've been using an asset management tool, how have you seen the change between, what was the day-to-day 4 or 5 years ago to today? What's the difference there?
The day-to-day, well, there's a lot of different angles I could take that one. As a maintenance supervisor, the best one is the amount of data that I'm getting from our technicians. They help a lot. They pick up a lot of slack where information in the work order, accuracy for work order information, because a lot of our operators don't know what's wrong with their machine all the time. They're not the expert on the machine. They don't work on it. And so we have a lot of buy-in that's helped from our maintenance staff, getting good data on what's actually happening with our work, getting accurate wrench time on our work orders. And then production as well. All the supervisors have been doing great on putting in accurate and quick work orders for our response time. The quicker they put one in, the quicker we can get on it. And then sometimes my technicians will put something in themselves, if they deem that it's necessary, they need to put it in right now. There's not a supervisor around. And so everybody just kind of works together, and we've been able to get people are in the system more. We even have engineers now that are putting in asset records themselves. We have process engineers that bring in new equipment, new product lines, and they put in an asset record in the system themselves with all the information. And then we have safety working in our asset management as well to complete their checklist within the system so that we have records of when stuff came in, what are the manuals, what was the purchase cost, break-in checklist, all that is managed in the EAM and easy to find.
So you mentioned you're gathering checklist, you're gathering also some other documentation. What documentation would that be?
Right. So like when we have new equipment come in, we want to make sure that we have everything in the record right then, because then if we need it in the future, we don't have to go back and find it and then add it. So basically what it is now is up front, our asset library is updated from the minute we move something in here. So what is that? That's operator manuals, that's maintenance schedules, that's recommended spare parts list and parts manuals, electrical schematics. We try
everything
to
that the machine everything the machines comes with that's there.
Right. Awesome. And we try to get the PM schedule set up immediately as well too, whether it's based on another machine we have or if it's just the manufacturer recommendations. We'll definitely start with those. We get all that in up front.
And that also probably helps you with older equipment, right? If you buy a new machine that comes with a PM schedule that, this is the recommended vendor procedure, then you put it in the system and then you can say, okay, so these old equipment that I already have, they also have to have some sort of that same maintenance. So
especially if we bought it used or if it's so old, we don't have a good PM for it. We don't have a good PM tech that's been able to write procedures. That definitely helps. But actually, a lot of the times it's the opposite. If we have an old machine that's been worked on a lot for our application, it's not always the same as what the manufacturer will recommend.
Yeah, you have your specific.
Our PM is a lot time better for our application than the manufacturer's PM. So we can apply our PM to the new equipment as well because of the experience that we have with it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It works both ways.
Yeah, it does. So let's talk a little bit about today, right? What are some of the metrics that you're currently, engaging with or, kind of measuring yourself at?
So we're reporting on a monthly basis. Not all of our plants are they're all using the same software, but they're not all on the same level as far as integration with the factory and buy-in from the employees, just because they just haven't had the staff maybe, and they haven't had the manpower to really push it yet. So it's something we're slowly implementing all of our U.S. facilities, which we have 4 at the moment. And we'll be getting everybody on the reporting, as far as reporting goes, at the same time. So what we're able to do is we're able to track, we've been tracking what our top breakdowns are and ranking them, and we're able to tell what the reasons are so the upper management can see that by plant. We also track separately what our safety work orders are in that regard. And when it comes to that, it's a lot of compliance. So how many work orders do we have open? Are we keeping up with our breakdowns and our other equipment needs? And we can also calculate some KPIs regarding PMs for our PM compliance and for preventative versus breakdown work. And we're comparing month to month and plant to plant.
Okay. So also, I think you guys have been very progressive in automation, right? You have built many different solutions on top of the build, the off-the-shelf solution that you guys purchased. You also have been building on top of that and making sure that different controls are put in place. For example, if you need a comment on a work order, right? So you've been doing a lot of automation, and has that been helpful to you guys? Have you been?
Absolutely. So as we get this data and we have more people buying in on using the software, different things come up, that we might need. For example, you brought up the comment. We're closing work orders without updating the information about the work. So we made a rule where you can't close a non-PM work order. So a breakdown or just a needs assistance type, a non-PM. You can't close one without putting in a comment. What'd you do? Sometimes it needs a long explanation, sometimes it doesn't, but it helps. We put in some rules that prevent multiple breakdown work orders for the same piece of equipment. And there's some exceptions to that we've built in as well as needed. That way, if if you put in a work order for an area, you can have multiple breakdowns. But if it's just one piece of equipment, then you can only be one at a time. So we had issues in the past where, between shifts, maybe someone notices a work order, something's not working, and they put in a work order. That's the first thought, which is good. But there's already one. They didn't know. They didn't check.
Right.
So it prevents them from putting in another breakdown. Otherwise, we would be counting breakdown time twice, which we don't want to do. That's bad information in our reports.
Yeah.
So just some automation things like that we've been able to work on. We've been able to use our asset management software and our work order system for vendor work as well. We can track vendor supplier work. And if we have other technicians come in to set up equipment, we have email generation that will communicate with that vendor. It will send an email to that vendor when work has been assigned to them, that we can then use that email chain to go ahead and get a kickstart on setting up our sending them whatever PO we might need to send for that work. So we have other vendors. They're not physically using the system, but they are kind of on the peripheral.
Okay. So, there's things that you feel that are not necessarily missing, but, you haven't gotten to them, right? What would be, your plan for a short-term, growth?
The short term, one thing we're working on now is getting more technicians and operators and inspectors using our checklist system. So there's non-maintenance work that can be tracked in our system and booked to our equipment. So one big thing is our paint line. We have operators that perform daily cleaning and daily inspections. Our welders have daily inspections. So we've been working on getting operators and inspectors to fill out daily checklists in here in the same system. That is then tracked under the record just the same as work would be, but separate. And that information is then emailed out to their respective supervisors and departments and tracked.
Interesting. And what do you do with that information? Do you create end of month analysis, or is that the plan? Or
Right. So the supervisors, of course, can see see the results and the responses to the checklist, and they can intervene as needed that way. But there's also methods of building in nonconformity checks. So for the paint line, certain solution measurements. That's just one example there. But we can create follow-up work if needed by maintenance based on this checklist. And because they're being sent out to the supervisors, they can also have quicker response time to any nonconformities that might occur because of the checklist.
Okay. And what about long term? What are some of Price's visions for an asset management solution, or asset management in general?
Getting a brighter and brighter, clearer and clearer picture of our asset health, which means quickest response time possible to work if needed, minimal breakdowns, minimal PMs required, while we maximize our predictive efforts. That's something we started working on a little bit, is predictive maintenance efforts. And the more that we can automate, the better. So we're talking some smart communication between equipment and our asset management software for immediate work order generation, for nonconformity checks, et cetera. I mean, the sky is really the limit there, and it's not even the ceiling.
Yep.
So we've been looking at some methods for some predictive maintenance work in the meantime that we would then set up and track in EAM at a basic level. But down the road, it's really limitless. If we could have every machine speak to the system and tell it itself when there's a problem, that would be awesome.
and then when you get there, there's always going to be something else, right?
There's always something else. All right. But that's definitely our long-term goal, is continuing to get a better picture of what our asset health is.
It's just like you said, it's a journey. It's always growing, and you'll always find something to fix and to improve.
Absolutely.
I think it's part of the whole message that we try to convey with this podcast. There's different levels to get to the tool. You could get to the very basics. You don't have any information. You can get halfway through that. You have some information, but you can evolve to a higher level, which is where I think you're going, right? Getting to that higher level. Would you say that gives you an advantage against competition?
Absolutely. I was about to jump into that if you didn't ask. Is if you're not constantly moving forward, then you're falling behind. There is no standing still in any industry, but especially manufacturing. So just like every other department in our company, we're all working together to improve reliability. And what does that mean? That means getting the most accurate information we can, and optimizing our time and our money the best we can. And as far as our asset management that goes, that's the direction we're heading. We don't ever want to sit still and say, okay, we've got enough data now. We can just chill out here and relax. We got to be constantly looking at how to eliminate the time between breakdown and a work order, eliminating breakdowns in general. How do we do that? We figure out our equipment better. We start predicting them ahead of time. And there's always going to be another way or a better way to get that information quicker.
Yep. Well, I think that's it for me. I don't know if you want to do any closing comments or anything like that.
Yeah, there's a couple things I like to say. It's been a great journey seeing where we are now, compared to when we were a year ago, or even when I got here. And it's just been great working with y'all, with Visual K, and the continued meetings we have week to week, month to month, and all the stuff we have on our list to work on, and that we will have a year from now. Our list is going to look completely different than it does now, and it's going to have stuff on there that we can't even we're not even thinking about yet, because we're always making changes and getting better, like we were
Yep.
just talking.
Yep.
So it's been exciting to see, and it's definitely exciting looking forward.
Yep. So, Michael, thank you very much. On behalf of
Absolutely.
Visual K and all of the team, I want to say we are proud of your growth. You've been very active in, recognizing the help and value of the solution, and, getting, hands-on interactions with it, and, engaging with the growth. So thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your experience. Like this and any other episodes, we will be sharing them by YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and other channels. So feel free to see this and any other episodes that we already have, and join us in this and any other podcast that we are sharing. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much for your time, and I had a great time. Can't wait for the next one.
All right. Yep. Again, thanks so much. Good seeing you as usual. Thanks for having me.